There was a trade delegation, you might have noticed, that went to China, headed by Kono Yohei. Kono Yohei is the father of Kono Taro. He was the Speaker of the House when I was working in the Diet. He is, I think, the only individual who became president of the LDP who did not become prime minister. A very powerful, very influential individual. His son is minister of the digital agency and a candidate for prime minister. He someday will become prime minister. I think that's easy to say. And that's why this attack on the digital agency and the inflection that maybe involves his leadership and his management abilities is something he truly wants to avoid, because there will be an election for prime minister at some point. He's still young in his career. So the fact that his father is visiting China, his father has always been known to be close to China and one of the members of the LDP who has continued to have those relations with China. He went on a trade delegation this last week, spent almost a week there. Pretty important. You might have missed it in the press because it's somewhat long read and a little bit boring if you're not involved in the trade issues. But he went there. He was joined by the governor of Okinawa, Denny Tamaki, and they talked about trade. They talked about the semiconductors and the fab machines that are being withheld from Japan to be sold in China. That ban starts in the middle of this month, I think on the 24th. But yeah, on the 23rd, the export restrictions will start. And so in this conclave that the delegation had, and they had very high access, actually, the premier of China said, these restrictions on trade will impact the global economy. Sounds a little bit like a very veiled threat, very, very veiled. So if you're going to do this to us, then you should be prepared for repercussions on a global scale. You will suffer as a result of that. So they talked about, supply chain. They talked about Japan's uncomfortable relationship with external forces, not mentioning anybody else by name. But the fact that Governor Tamaki was also there is really interesting. I'd like to get into that a little bit. Let me see, the fact that he was in China and received so warmly, Denny Tamaki was. He was also invited to Fuzhou City, which was kind of the launching point for the trade relations between Okinawa and China many, many years ago. And as you might not know, Okinawa was a vassal state of China for about 500 years. It was actually closer to China than it was with Japan proper. And in any event, Japan was going through the warring stages, the warring period. People weren't invited. Delegations weren't coming into Japan for trade missions and that sort of thing. So Okinawa played that role as a trade arbiter between Japan and China. And they had a very strong tributary relationship spanning 500 years and 2 Chinese dynasties. So the relationship there is very, very strong. That relationship ended in 1879 as the Satsuma clan invaded Okinawa and annexed it. And so the Satsuma clan took over that trade and all of the representations that it included. It did cause a lot of problems between Japan and China. China at that time was suffering from British rule as well, so it was a ripe time for the Satsuma clan to go in there. But this history just continues to impact on what's going on in current events. So this friendship with Okinawa, this opening of arms with Denny Tamaki, and if you've visited Okinawa recently, you will notice that there's a lot of Chinese investment there. There are a lot of Chinese that are doing business there, running companies, and they want Okinawa to be much more friendly to China. And although 70% of the U.S. Military presence in all of Japan is focused in Okinawa, and this is a bone of contention that Governor Tamaki has, he's been negotiating with the central government to release some of the aid and some of the support that other prefectures get. Okinawa is the poorest of all prefectures. It's got the highest birth rate, but still the lowest economy. And so with the U.S. forces there and the tropical kind of environment that it has, you would expect it to be a much more vibrant economy, but it's not, and it's not for a lot of artificial reasons that are political in nature. So this relationship with Denny Tamaki and the Chinese delegation, he spent a lot of time with Kono Yohei as well, which is a good thing. So it's this relationship between China and Japan seems to be getting a little bit better traction. There are other things that are going on that I'm going to talk about with regard to the prime minister. So um, it's an interesting development there. It's something to watch.